Here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael, for the introduction and for inviting us all to take part in this session. Dear colleagues, I'm sorry I can't be here with you today, but I hope we'll have some interesting discussions. The short presentation I propose to make now could be kind of a self-congratulatory victory speech. This is what we often do to justify our budgets. We oversell the results of our centers to guarantee the recognition of our peers and the indulgence of our institution. But in fact, the history of the Nuclear Center, of which I am the vice director, is more of a mixed story, as you will see. It's a very small center which doesn't derive its legitimacy from a major research activity, but because it has very recently gradually become necessary to our faculty to help with tasks linked to the administration of research and teaching. Let's start with a bit of context. Let's go back 10 years to recall the DH 2014 conference. So that was 10 years ago. Some of you probably remember looking for your names on the big red carpet, which featured the network of all conferences co-authors. Some of you may still use the portrait taken on that occasion for one of your social media profile picture. I mean, I just before this talk, I just went on Twitter to have a look, and I found a few. So these are a few memories of this DH 2014 conference in Lausanne, and hosting the conference in Lausanne was a great opportunity. And at the same time, what people may not have realized was that the DH dynamic in Lausanne was very, very fragile at the time. So it was a very fortunate coincidence to be able to host the conference in Lausanne in 2014. In fact, since DH 2014, most of the people I meet at DH conferences, they come to chat with me and praise Lausanne, telling me how lucky we are here, etc. So basically, this very small university city has been put on the map of globalized digital humanities. And also on a personal note, it was also in 2014 that I became chair of Humanistica, the newly created French digital humanities association. So it all adds up to a real success story for Lausanne in 2014. However, the local situation was very different. And the people doing DH in Lausanne and being active in international DH spheres are not prophets in their own land. It's still quite hard to do digital humanities and to be recognized as digital humanists in the University of Lausanne. One of our first difficulties is the institutional situation. The fact that we have two universities here: the EPFL, a federal university that trains engineers, and UNIL, a regional generalist university. This is of course an asset, as demonstrated by the joint organization of the DH 2014 conference, but that's also one of our weakness here, because these two universities, they have very, very different funding structures and opposing institutional logics. The DH 2014 conference was the first collaboration between EPFL, DH Lab and UNIL's Laboratory for Digital Humanities and Culture, and which is, by the way, not really a laboratory, but a meeting place for researchers in the humanities, theology, and social sciences. And because this university LADUL Lab brings together three faculties, it was always held hostage in the budget negotiations between these three entities. So a few years later, a few years after DH 2014, the EPFL seriously strengthened its DH offer with a real department. And the two universities agreed to fund an inter-university center, which is the UNIL plus EPFL DH center, more or less at the center right of this screen. It was a time of a great enthusiasm and professionalization for DH in Lausanne. Too much, in fact. This brand new center, which was not based on the things developed in the field on both sides at the EPFL and at UNIL, tried in vain to organize and bring people together. The experiment was short-lived. Here you see the span from 2019 to 2022, but in fact, it was already almost killed 1.5 years after its first event. So the situation is quite strange was quite strange in Lausanne a few years ago. But recently, a new dynamic has emerged, and it's the one I want to talk to you about today, which is this new Nucleus Center, and to discuss a bit what it's all about and what are the challenges of a new dynamic in this context where we have already hosted a major DH conference, been recognized as a place where people do DH, but in fact here on the field at the local level, it's still hard to organize and to try to get things done together. So, in fact, following the previous failure, which showed that the DH at the University of Lausanne were not yet mature, nobody wanted the center anymore. In fact, really, most of people, they really didn't want to spend time on building a new center and get back to their own work. But we soon realized that, in fact, we had quite a lot of things that were already happening in the arts faculty here. So specifically, we had before an interfaculty lab, and now things are happening at the faculty level. So that's the lowest level we can organize a few things together. We already had like a committee coordinating courses that include the development of digital skills. We already had a board trying to bring together the research engineers who are thinking about digital infrastructure. We already had colleagues asking our authorities to rule on the energy efficiency of our digital practices, or to get information about how do we cope with a generative AI with in our teaching, etc., etc. We have hardware to manage, we have software to manage at the faculty level, etc., etc. So in fact, there are already quite a lot of things that are happening and that are more or less institutionalized because these groups exist. And at some point, someone said, "Hey, why don't we gather all these forces and make a new center with that?" And I mean, yeah, and these groups more specifically are currently the working groups of this new Nucleus Center that has been created a few years ago. Groups like people working on digital archaeology, digital poetry, questions of digital publishing, of course, generative AI, ChatGPT, etc. A group about managing our infrastructure, etc., etc. So all these groups, they exist already, and now they form a center. And what is interesting in about these groups is their heterogeneity. Some are directly created on the basis of a top-down order from the arts faculty. We are formally asked for our opinion on the use of ChatGPT by students, for example. That's a very, very specific one. But we are also formally asked by the faculty to keep software licenses up to date and so on. So these are things that come from the faculty level, and the faculty asks us to create and to maintain these groups so that these core missions can be fulfilled. On the contrary, sometimes there are also bottom-up activities, like our colleagues who are calling our authorities to account on the mental health and environment issues linked to the use of digital technology. So they proposed drafting a charter for digital sobriety. So this is clearly something that comes from the bottom, and the center can be a place where they express these concerns and make these concerns reach the faculty and then the university. And finally, there are also groups that are more classical communities of practice, groups that are self-organized around particular methods or disciplines, and these are quite traditional digital humanities concerns. So this heterogeneity is very interesting in this center. Some groups are working with a mandate from the faculty. Some groups are working because they are activists trying to make the faculty work on specific subject, and some are more horizontal groups where people will discuss the impact of digital technologies on their disciplines. And so the center is really exactly that. It's just the mix of all these different groups that some of them existed before, some of them have been created since, with just one little group in the center, which is the central board of the center. That is just the gathering of all the people that are leaders of these different groups, and a few people that are managing the technical stuff at the faculty level. So the center is very strange little thing where very organic organization where we have these working groups and a little board at the center to try to coordinate all that. And what is interesting is that of course, we see very soon that this patchwork, in a certain sense, becomes more than the sum of all these small communities. People jump from one to another and also develop new ideas like organizing scientific events or organizing their own mini community or setting up in-house training courses or setting up joint teaching programs because they realize that they're working on the same thing, so they want to teach together, etc., etc. So that means that this kind of gathering is producing something more than just the gathering itself, which is a very common thing with centers. But that's well, I mean, we are lucky to be able to observe that with this kind of very self-organized and low hierarchical organization. And of course, what is also very interesting to see happen is the fact that after 2 years, quite a lot of people joined the center, nearly 100 people. I think we are a bit over 100 now, and while it began as something in opposition to the traditional model of the meeting place, it is spontaneously developing meeting places. So organizing conferences and things like that of its own. So coming back to the old models as well. So that's one of the funny output of this kind of organic organization. Now about the challenges. Being less ambitious than previous initiatives has the advantage of no longer being dependent on several different faculties or universities. So that's a very good point. But this very organic way of working also poses a number of challenges. Like most of our colleagues have well-defined specifications. I mean, they have things they have to do. I mean, they are paid for a certain number of things. So why take an extra task if they're not directly ordered by the hierarchy? Why would they involve in this kind of center? Also, participation in these activities is not very well recognized because, I mean, that's an official organization. So why would you engage into that if you're not recognized by having a honorary title and saying, hey, you're a member of this committee, this thing, etc. Also, by the very nature, work groups, they have a very short to medium life expectancy. So they can be created easily, but they also dissolve quickly. So that means that sometimes, yeah, it's some years we can have like 10 different groups, 15 different groups, 5 different groups. It will evolve very quickly. So that's not very easy to keep track of all the members, etc. Also, our organic way of working means that we can respond very quickly to requests if our members are sufficiently motivated or they find time and energy. But long-term projects are almost impossible. I mean, it's really hard to create a long-term approaches. And then, as we inherit missions from the faculty, we also inherit a certain budget, which is good, and certain equipment. But how can an organic center manage these kind of things without qualified personnel? So we are just inheriting these tasks and this budget and this hardware, but in the end, we are not professionals of either administration or technical aspects of all these. So this is one of the few of the challenges we have. As a conclusion, so at the University of Lausanne, we've gone from a laboratory, which was not really a laboratory, serving as a meeting place, to an inter-university center, which, despite a large budget, didn't find any echo in the two institutions, to find ourselves today with a sort of loosely defined mini center. I don't claim that the model we are in today is new, nor that it solves the problems better than all the others that will be presented in this session. Far from it, by the way. I'm simply saying that it responds to needs, some very specific, other much less clearly defined. Time will tell whether it survives for a few years or whether the twists and turns of Lausanne's digital humanities will lead to the same fate as the previous initiatives. I think we have to be humble in the face of all this. We serve where we can and step aside when we can't. Sorry to end on a quite pessimistic note, but I promised you I wouldn't give a self-congratulatory speech. So thank you for your attention.